Okay, some American lady saying we're now recording.
Okay, let's see how it goes.
Let's just make it up as we go along. That's how most of these work. To be honest with you, it's like we're trying to be professional. We're not. We're just winging it. Do the countdown. This is for me. 5, 4. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another E5 podcast. Today is what I would consider an extra special one because we have a very lovely guest with us today. Could you introduce yourself, please, my dear?
Hi, Paul. I am Sara Martinez. I am Senior E&P Engineer on the Software Systems Alliance, and I'm electrical engineer, as you are.
And you are joining me all the way from Spain on your holidays as well.
Yes, I know I shouldn't be doing this in my holidays, to be fair.
No. Listen, you are for all those listening and watching. We are always very, very. I've known Sarah for a number of years from when she was a graduate, and she has always been a very stern worker, and you have always not been busy. So being able to get you on this podcast is fantastic. So thank you very much for joining us. So you work for Colas and you're a senior E&P engineer. For those listening, E&P engineer is Electrification and Plant. And for those electricians or people who work on the tools, mechanical and electrical sits somewhere within there, right down after the high voltage and all the other big heavy plant stuff. But yeah, it's anything electric effectively E&P engineers have to do. So I want to ask you the first question, and it's a question we're asking a number of people in this series of podcasts, is what made you get into engineering? Why engineering, especially electrical?
So why I got into engineering was mainly because, well, my dad is an engineer, so I always had that role model where I saw someone, curious about how things work and why they work that way. But I find there is a lot of beauty in engineering. So the nice thing I found about engineering is that you look at any consequence has a cause behind it. So it's just a question of looking into it and exactly knowing what made this happen. So the beauty of it, I think, is that it's really linear, and you can actually always, if you investigate enough or if you know enough, find how things work. And for me, that is a lot better than in normal life, because in normal life that doesn't happen that usually. And also what I like about being an engineer is that there are new challenges every day. Every day is a school day. You always have new things to look at. Even a project that you could say, oh, this is a small project, this is not difficult. You will always find the tweaks and something to discover every day. So I find this a really challenging but rewarding profession.
This is the bit where I get to embarrass you on the podcast now. So when we first, I'm going to tell the story of when we first met. My first memory of you. So I was at the Docklands Light Railway and you were working as a graduate engineer. And I remember you came into our offices and there was an individual, I believe he's retired now, and he was arguing with you about some settings on the safety devices, protection settings. And you were strongly debating that he may have it wrong and you may be possibly right, and that's putting it kindly. And I watched in front of me you take this guy to school in every way, shape or form. This was a very experienced senior guy, and you totally schooled him, and all I saw was passion and knowledge, and the refusal to back down because you knew you were right regardless of whether you're a graduate. And I remember after I left, I turned around to one of my colleagues, Andre, and I was just like, she's going to be awesome. She's going to be awesome. While the other bloke felt like he'd been hit by a brick wall. But after you left, he was like, yeah, she's right. She's absolutely right. Yeah, can't argue with it. And I was just like, yeah, okay. This lady's going to be an awesome electrical engineer. So that's my first memory. But I thought I'd just embarrass you on the podcast for that. I've got another question for you. Now, we all have our rhymes and reasons as to why we're in this industry, why we're in the trades that we're in. But what makes you, because I know you, and anyone who does know you, it's fair to say as well, you are actually also a volunteer for the IET, and you're
Hmm.
currently chairperson of the East London Network.
Correct.
So that tells me straight away you have a love for what you do, period. You
Yeah, I
absolutely
do,
love it. Can you
definitely.
kind of maybe explain to me why you have such an affinity for electrical engineering? What fascinates you with it? It's a hard one, I know.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's beautiful. I don't know how to explain it properly, but I actually think there is a beauty in it. I mean, the way things work and the way you get this outcome from the inputs, and the way you can tweak it slightly to make it what you want. It's just that it's something that you can actually. I think I said this just on the response before, but it's actually something you can find out why it works this way and affect the result. And for me,
Mhm.
things that work, but you put A and you get A plus, and you put B and you get B plus, or whatever. For me, it's things like, I don't know. I do enjoy that a lot, and I don't know how to explain it. And to be fair, railways as well is a really nice part from my point of
And
view on
I
electrical.
agree with you. I agree with you in that respect because one of the things that I've found is the railway in particular is incredibly complex and is incredibly multidisciplinary. You don't just do electrical in the railway. You do
No,
other parts of your discipline. I mean, for those outside of railway, anyone who goes into management or engineering is always electrical and mechanical, or mechanical and electrical. In railways, it's far bigger. You'll have track heating, track movements, overhead line equipment, interactive and very complex earthing and bonding arrangement, low voltage supplies, lighting, general power, industrial power, transformers, and making all that interact and work is incredibly complex. And when you're going on the journey, it's fascinating. When you understand it, it's fascinating. I mean, I'm working on a what is effectively diverted neutral current issue at the moment, which is fascinating because what it does mean is you put a clamp meter on a bonding cable and you'll get like 50 amps on an LV bonding cable because we have some broken protective earth neutral cables or a damaged piece of track, and it's figuring all the intricacies of where is this gone wrong, how has it gone wrong, how do I prevent it, or do I need to implement or design new measures? That to me is fascinating. So I can see why
can't agree more.
it's a subject with so much passion that you can put into it, and that includes even on the domestic. I know it's going to sound really weird because obviously this is a podcast for electricians who mainly use this, but what I wanted to do with this series is open it up to more people who work in the bigger spectrum of industry and manufacturers and all that this year, so that we can just get a taste of what other people contribute towards the world of the electrical industry in general. Um, every single day is a school day. You said it best. Every day is a school day. So can you tell me about some of the challenges that you might experience on a day? What's a normal day for Sara Martinez then?
Okay, so it's really variable. So I usually work in two main streams, which one of them is reviewing electrical designs made by other designers, where I assure them from a client point of view.
Yeah.
And then I have a separate stream of work where I design, or I participate on the design team on the designing third rail power for trains in the southeast and west Wessex of England. So that is my normal day-to-day job. But then obviously you have the challenges that of from site, from people that is commissioning jobs that you have already approved for construction, that they have found an existing cable that failed insulation resistant test. They found, oh, this trough route actually doesn't work, or this UTX that we thought we could use, we can't. If I'm using UTX, I mean under track crossing. I need
Yeah.
to make sure
Thing
I
that
don't
goes
talk
underneath the
really
tracks. Yeah, yeah.
railway. Yes. So you have always all the challenges that come from site, and then you have always like the odd question from this random designer or random person, and they're like, oh, I'll ask this to Sara because she probably will know the answer. So I have this kind of, things going through my inbox that could be of any kind of sort. And they're always like, can you help me here? Or can you have a look at this? Can you, yeah, can you come to this meeting to just look at it and tell me what you think? So it's really nice because I participate in many separate projects and with kind of different hats on as well.
That is good. I think it's fair to say as well there is a huge lack of competencies that are out there at the moment, because I think it's fair to say I am always busy, and I'm not saying I'm the most competent, perfect one in the world. I'm genuinely not. But what I am seeing is there is a distinct need for more competent persons within the industry, more passionate. I've always said this. There is not many people in the railway industry as such, and I'm not generalizing staff or workers or train drivers or anything like that, but engineering resources who go the extra mile, who really give a damn, to be honest with you. And I think it's probably because of sheer workloads or volumes, or maybe the lack of engineers that should be in the rail industry versus what are in the industry. I don't know what the solution is, but I do know that there is certainly a desperate need. I mean, I'm going to be employing some engineers soon, and the number one criteria for them is not going to be whether they have a degree, it's going to be whether they actually care enough. The rest of it can be taught and supported and educated, and I think that's a really key thing, to be honest with you. Having diversity at work, you're lucky you get asked to go to solve problems. I'm almost on the verge of getting asked to stay away from other people's problems, because I'll go into it with like a Sherlock Holmes type view and go, well, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that's wrong, that needs changing. And all of a sudden somebody goes, I haven't got the budget for that. Okay, well, you're going to need to. Here's your legal obligation. Away you go. And they tend to go, oh, okay, we didn't expect any of this, but now we're going to have to fix virtually everything. But then again, that's what happens when you get an engineer who cares and goes through all the various standards and stuff and does the work. That's a key thing, doing the work.
I fully agree with what you're saying regarding the engineers in the industry. And something else I want to add to that is that I think also that we get really good engineers from the railway industry, but sometimes they don't get exposed to the various parts. So from my point of view, but that's just my view, any engineer that wants to actually be a good engineer should probably get involved in construction at some point or maintenance, because then they understand what is the end product, what you're designing for, and what happens when someone needs to build from your design. And from my point of view, sometimes it happens that you have engineers that they get stuck on their little cluster, not on their little cluster, but on their project, on their cluster, on their thing, and they don't look forward to maybe change roles or do something completely different that actually gives you a bigger view and a broader view on how the whole system works. So I find that it's really good engineers, but they actually maybe don't go the extra mile to try to go maybe to other separate business entities or business streams to that will make them probably more competent, not more competent, yeah, maybe
more experience leads to competence,
yes.
Isn't it? At the end of the day, it enhances competence, and that is, I think, one of the daily challenges. I think it's fair to say that there's not probably a year that goes by where you can look back and go, I didn't know that at the start of this year. I didn't know that. No. I had no experience of that.
Even a month.
Yeah, it's true. But that's the part of the challenge, is putting the brave foot forward. Now, just to fill in a little bit, really, on a bit of a backstory, is I consider so you did a graduate scheme, which is, you were very fortunate to have, and in that graduate scheme you were very lucky, because the first time I met you, you were working for effectively one of my incumbent maintainers. So you were working for Colas, who were maintaining a large section of the Docklands Light Railway, and you were very much sleeve roll up in the trenches. I think the first time we actually met, you were lifting up manhole covers, if I remember right, at City Airport Station. You were there with the keys, physically lifting them up, and I was like, oh, I'll do it. No, you were in there. You were in there like a shot. And I was just like, okay, yeah. But you were getting the experience. You were doing the work. You were analysing the problem. And that was really, really cool to see, because I think we were looking at a faulty cable on a lift, where once we lifted up the chambers, they were full of water. It was a bit chunky.
Correct.
It was full of water. I've still got the pictures somewhere of this cable tray. I was thinking, why have we put galv trunking in here when it's fairly evident if it fills with water, probably some sort of GRP or stainless or maybe weatherproofing duct-rated cabling probably would be the answer here. But I don't know, sometimes you never know who's going to perforate a water membrane when you're built right next to an airport. Who knows? So on the challenges you experience, I think it's fair to say it's every other day. And there's probably loads here. What advice would you give to others? And I'm not going to generalize that. I'm going to ask you to say engineers who you work with currently, juniors, people want to get into it. There is a huge at the moment women in engineering. I'm not going to call it a movement, but it's more an awareness campaign to highlight the good work that lots and lots of women do in engineering. Some of the toughest and best people I've met in engineering are women. So what advice would you give to these various groups of people?
What I would advise to maybe people that wants to make a place for themselves in the industry, from my point of view, would be always don't be afraid to ask. So I find in many meetings, people just want to ask the question because they don't want to be in the spotlight, or they don't want to be looked at, I don't know this. But the moment you ask something, you will get that knowledge gap filled. And it's so important sometimes because just by asking the question, there is nothing wrong for asking. I actually ask all sorts of questions, and I openly recognize in middle of meetings with 10 people, oh, I don't know about that. Because I find first it helps everyone else that is in the meeting as well to understand what is the root cause of the problem, and second, I find there is no point in pretending that you know something that you don't know, and there is a lot more value in recognizing that you don't know it and learn it, and that's how I've done it all my career so far, and I think it's one of the most valuable things I've done. Just literally asking a question. There is always someone that can respond to you, and if no one can, maybe then you're asking the right question.
Yeah, it's very true. Sometimes just asking an innocent question can absolutely blow apart a meeting. And I have sat down, and I remember I sat in one meeting, I won't mention where, and I literally put my hand up and waited for the project director to go, yes, Paul. And I just went, so does that mean we're going to now break the law because this law says that and you want to do that? And the whole room just went, oh, and they'd been talking for like an hour, and I was just like, you're so in depth caring about a milestone that you are by default looking for excuses to move safety and quality out the window to hit a milestone. And the minute you do that, whatever your expected remaining cost will at least triple. But it's an unknown thing to you, but a very much known risk to the end users. And I have found that when I was younger, I used to ask lots of questions, and then I got the hump. And I got angry, and I decided to go away and read every single railway standard I could get my hands on. And then I realized, using a highlighter pen, that actually there wasn't that much in them, apart from the odd nugget of knowledge, which then asked you to go and look for another. Where did that distance come from? Why do we have to do this within set meters of the track? Why do we have to do that? And then you do go on a bit of a number chasing journey, especially in rail or in normal electrical work. You look in the wiring regulations, you end up going on this choose your own adventure of multiple standards, looking at for more information on a certain protective device as to why it does what it does if you're an inquisitive soul. But yeah, also for ladies in particular, because so just to fill you in on where I am at the moment, there are some wonderful ladies who are good old-fashioned on the tools electricians who are doing their best. Karen Boom, massive shout out to Karen. She's one of the soldiers who's just going out there banging a drum saying I'm a woman. She's not doing it in a, oh, I'm a woman, give me all the privileges. She's just doing it the right way, saying, look, women are great electricians too. We could be anything the men can be, and we don't want any special treatment. What would you say to young girls, about the challenges that they could face, and advice to them to enable their journey to be more successful going into any form of engineering?
So what I would recommend to a woman starting in railway would be to always support and get support from other members of the teams. So in the teams, there is always great people. We are willing to help. And if you show exactly the same to them back, it usually works great because a team is a team and there is synergy regardless your gender. And if there is this odd occasion where someone makes an appropriate comment or something that for me half the times is people not realizing, like literally they're not realizing what they're saying, and you can just kindly ask, oh, do you mean this, do you mean that, and they will probably usually straight away realize what is happening. So in general, I don't think you need a special advice, but more than just be yourself and trust other people and make sure you're trustworthy as well to help out. I'm not sure if this is really a good advice, but that's how I would put it.
No. All any advice is good advice. In the day, we've all. I think everybody's got different experiences. I mean, I'm going to give a shout out because I know I know there is a Facebook group for female electricians that's been set up just for female electricians to act as a support network. Because I think it's fair to say, if we're going to talk about the elephant in the room, I know from experience, having spoken to a number of ladies within the industry, there is a stigma still with some women working in some companies. And I mean, I'm lucky. So where I work in Trenitalia, there's more women than there is men, which is fantastic for me because I work I work around some incredibly powerful and amazing women. I mean, ones I would never ever dare wish to mess or cross in any way, shape, or form. And they're strong Italian women. So they're not afraid of an argument as well, which is an amazing, I think, character building and experience building for me. But I look back over the years and you still see on social media people like ladies who will go onto sites with multiple trades and it'll be like, oh, all right, darling, and typical kind of prejudice, put the tea on, banter stuff, which can affect the ladies' mental health, the mental well-being, because they don't go to work to get crap. They could be married with a family at home. They're really passionate about doing their work, their industry, their creativity, having that finished product and the feeling of I've done that. And there's more and more wonderful ladies coming into our trade. But I feel that there's probably the more and more come in, there's more and more morons being exposed and women having to develop thick skin, which is wrong because it shouldn't be tolerated anywhere. Various forms of discrimination and harassment. Have you ever suffered any form of discrimination and harassment at all?
I have to say that when I have worked, and I have worked in quite various places. I have worked in construction. I've been the only woman on site many times,
Right.
and I have to say that everyone has been really kind to me. But at the same time, I am also I'm a bit of a strong character person, and I don't think maybe if something has happened, it hasn't happened in front of me. You know what I mean? So
I can
from my
imagine
point
you.
of view, I have literally nothing to say because, to be fair, my colleagues treat me really, really, really well. I get along with them really well. They make jokes about me, and I make jokes about them. So it's really good. I actually enjoy it a lot. In fact, I love going to site. I do enjoy it so much.
Yeah, so you meet some amazing, amazing characters and personalities and stuff. For me, it's really weird for me because I've experienced lots and lots and lots of various different. I've never experienced, well, in my respects, I've never experienced on site that sort of stuff. I've experienced some horrific bullying and stuff, well, attempts at bullying, but the prejudices, the racism, sexisms and stuff, I have seen that throughout my entire career on construction sites. And those sorts of people, they just need to be removed from our industry, to be perfectly frank, because I think the affiliated trades and everything else, working where you're building something that will last beyond your lifetime is a privilege. And I think we should realize that it's a privilege and it's something creative that we should be proud of, not have memories of making people's lives a misery, which can happen in construction, which is wrong. And again, that comes down to poor discipline of management. That could be a lack of competence. All I know is anyone who works on Sara Martinez's jobs, God help you, if you are bad, she will absolutely hand your ass to you on a plate. I know, I've seen it.
Not like that, exactly.
So I'm just going to go on to a little bit of a dark subject now. So can you give me some examples of some of the good or the bad things? I think we've covered the bad, actually. Can you give me an example of some of the good things that you've seen in your career, or some of the projects that you've done that you're really proud of, that you can go, wow, I did that, and no one can take that away from me?
To be fair, one of the great things about working in the railway, about working in engineering again, which is something that we covered before, but one of the main things I also find that I love is that the fact that you have something on your mind, or you make a decision, and that actually translates into reality. So you make a decision, 6 months earlier, and then you are on site and you see it coming together, and you look at it and you're like, okay, that was a great decision. So from my point of view, what is the best about my job is that the feeling of, for example, when I used to section proof, which is like the last test you do in the railway. So you hand back your work site and then you just test electrical stuff with the control room on the phone, and you go through the document, and like 20 minutes after the first passenger train goes through, that feeling, it's really, really, really nice, because it's just, I don't know how to explain it. It's just you deliver to the passenger a good product, a better product, and it's something that is the outcome of what it was on your mind and your colleagues' minds just a year before. So Yeah, so that happens with many projects we've done. I've worked on well, I work at the moment on all the switches and crossings renewals for Southeast and Wessex. So I can name projects like, I don't know, we've just done Brixton, we have done Battersea Pier, Battersea Park, we have done, I cannot even name them, we have like about 10 or 15 projects a year. So we worked in the Waterloo upgrade in 2017 as well, in the Red Hill Platform Zero opening extension. And at the moment we have Charlton. Well, we have many. It's just we literally do renewals all the time. I cannot even pick up one.
You're constantly busy doing renewals. So for anyone listening, switches and crossings, they're the things that the train go over, the joints, the intersections where the trains will meet and cross over onto another route. They're very, very critical. Nobody likes a train to derail. So you'll hear the term, anyone who does anything with electrification or tracks or switches and crossings, it's very much safety critical, because if you make a mistake, you can cause a disaster, and that's not allowed. So there's very, very stringent controls and checks on many aspects of it before you're allowed to touch it. There's also a level of authorization and authority, experience that needs to be documented and demonstrated, and competency proved. You can't just turn up and work on 25,000 volt stuff. You can't just turn up and cut a track. You have to have it meticulously designed within millimeters. And when I say millimeters, I used to do FPL testing on points and manually wind them over, and the tolerance was 1.5 mil, which is virtually nothing on a ruler. 1.5 mil tolerance on a track crossing is nothing, but that's how frequently they're tested, and they're literally checked pretty much every couple of weeks to ensure their safety and their operation. So there is that term Orange Army out there working all the hours under the sun. It's because literally they're dealing with a linear system that is expanding and contracting, and that happens with the wires, and sometimes the wires can sag, sometimes wires. So everything needs to be designed so it can automatically adjust, and if it can't adjust, it needs to be designed so it continues to operate safely. It's massively complex. I'm kind of glad I stayed towards the LV side, although I do have a ridiculously intimate level of knowledge of all the EMP stuff. I actually prefer the pipes and wires of the stations and the interfaces and all the rest of it, because it's amazing to see how the station interfaces are never quite done correctly. Probably because the station's maybe not deemed safety critical enough. I don't know. But yeah, getting the bonding arrangement on a station is always a good laugh. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I am going to ask you the question that we ask everyone who comes on the podcast. And it's basically, if you had 3 wishes in this industry, okay, obviously, if I said it'd be win the lottery, huge house, etc. But if you had 3 wishes for the industry, the trade, or whatever, what would they be?
Okay, so on a more holistic view, I'm not going to talk about like specifics, but for me, from my point of view, one of them would definitely filling out the knowledge gap. So I find there is a lot of people, senior people in the railway, that are just about retirement, or in the few years before retirement, that they have this massive knowledge which is actually not really captured anywhere much, or it's just there. And then we have this bunch of young people which is joining now the railway, or it's been around for a while, and I'm worried that in the middle, when I am concerned that all the knowledge that experienced people have will not get transferred. So from my point of view, that people from British Rail times, they know so much about the railway, which is just amazing. Like walking encyclopedias. So just making sure that transfer of knowledge happens, and also that young people keeps coming to the railway, because it's an amazing industry, and I don't think it's being sold out there as good as it is, as other maybe professions are being sold out there to younger university students or high school students.
It's definitely one of the most complex, isn't it? I think we're quite fortunate is the level of, because I agree with you. When I started on this rail industry, it was like, learn how to wire a station, done, completed it, mate. What's next? And it never stops.
No, because this is your electrical system, but this is your electrical system, and then everything around it is influenced by everything that's So your system may work, but it needs to fit everywhere else, and that is basically the challenge, I think. Then
Okay.
obviously, me as a woman, I would like the industries I wish to have more diversity, just because I think diversity just makes teams better, and I find there is so much synergies on having different members of staff, not in terms of gender only, but any other. So I always, I would love to have more women in engineering, and also I would say. Obviously safety is really important for us, but I would go a bit further and say like health, because with the new normality and everything that is going on, just trying to make sure that the impact of of um, of the current situation doesn't affect the industry too much, and we all remain in health, and also the industry is still healthy and it has enough revenue and outcome to support all of us, because yeah, challenging times are coming. So
Wow. Okay. So you have managed to do what many people on this podcast have not done, and that is get 3 wishes out for this industry. I'm just going to comment on so legacy. I can
yeah.
tell you now, me and you are totally in agreement. There is so much knowledge held by people who are close to retirement or probably should have retired, and they're not retiring because the knowledge is in their head and it's not in the form of a document or a strategy or something. So I operate, and I implore anyone who works in any form of client role or role where you hold responsibility of knowledge, adopt the hit by a bus scenario. And the hit by a bus, because I do this at work, and that is if I get hit by a bus tomorrow and I don't go back to work where I currently work, can someone pick up from where I was and do the good work that I was doing? If the answer is no, then I'm not succeeding in what I'm trying to do. So at the moment, what I'm doing is I'm currently writing an asset strategy. That asset strategy is my knowledge, all the knowledge I've learned in the 2 and a bit years of where I've been for my route. That will become a live organic document, which is updated every year. So by the time I hit year 4 and 5, it's going to be able to list every asset, what we know, but I'm also creating a requirement standard for the whole route so that anyone who comes in can pick it up and go, well, there's the asset knowledge, there's the requirements going forward for what we do. Paul can get hit by a bus tomorrow. It doesn't affect the route. And me and you have seen examples of where legacy knowledge has just disappeared and it costs us a lot of headaches. So I totally agree on the legacy stuff. Diversity, yes, because I find the more diverse a group, and I'm particularly going to talk about where I am now. It's an amazing company with amazingly strong women and people from BAME and LGBT. And I never thought it would be any different. But the one thing I would say that is different is I'm challenged more. But I'm challenged in ways that I wouldn't have ever thought of, because what I considered the normal way of thinking, there are other people from different experiences and backgrounds that can challenge it in a different way. And I think that doesn't kill you, that makes you stronger. So diversity, yes. And health, right. We talk about safety all the time. Safe, 100% safe, work safe, home safe, all of these logos, beyond zero. What's beyond zero? How can you go beyond zero? And it's about accident statistics. But you are absolutely right. We do as an industry piecemeal gesture type things on health. Don't get ill. Why? Because you won't be able to come to work and earn us money. What about your mental health? Yeah, mental health's really important. Now that we've said that, is that enough? Is that enough? We just talk about mental health, and yes, the act of talking is good, but we don't really have enough to support or employers. And I've had this once. I remember once I was working somewhere and they were going through some massive transformations. I'm not going to name the company, but they were going through huge transformations, and it was killing people's mental health. And so they turned around and said, oh, by the way, yeah, we've got this mental health policy. Hooray. And the mental health policy said the company will not do anything that impacts your mental health. So we were like, excuse me, it is. You are. You're not telling us our job's secure. You're not doing this. This is impacting our family lives. So health, especially mental health, totally agree on. They are 3 awesome responses. Awesome responses. I think, unless you have any questions for me, I think we're going to kind of end it there, because I think that was sharp and short and lean, and that was awesome.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it a lot as well.
Sarah, thank you very much for joining me on the E5 podcast. And yeah, until the next one, I'm sure we're going to have some more exciting and entertaining ladies on this series. So till the next one, everybody, take care of yourself. Sarah, thank you very much as always. And line, take care of yourself and each other. Bye bye.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
And that's